Hello, and thank you for joining us here on Ask a Historian. I'm Matthew Wilkinson, historian with Heritage Mississauga. Please send in your questions to history@heritagemississauga.org as we will explore the fascinating stories of our community. Like, subscribe, and follow us, and stay up to date on all the heritage happenings with Heritage Mississauga. On this week's episode of Ask a Historian, we will be connecting with the 50th anniversary of the Halton-Peel branch of Ontario Ancestors, formerly the Ontario Genealogical Society. Our special guests are longtime members of the Halton-Peel branch, Dorothy Q and Fran Murphy, and together we will wander down memory lane as we celebrate 50 years of genealogy in our community. So, thank you, Dorothy, for joining us here as we explore the 50th anniversary of the Halton-Peel branch of Ontario Ancestors, or perhaps more familiarly known Ontario Genealogical Society. And I know you are a longtime member and long involved, and I think the executive put you up to the task to talk about the history of the organization. So, uh, thank you for joining us.
You're welcome, Matthew. It's funny, I was looking at your questions, and the first one I think was, how long have you been a member? And that became a problem because, well, on my card, well, according to OGS, whenever I pay my dues or whatever, they say I've been a member since 1985. And I think to myself, that doesn't sound right. I distinctly remember when we went to seminar 84, and it was the Yankees are coming, the Yankees are coming, and it was at Arundel College. So the only way I could do this was to go through all our newsletters online, and that really helped. And I found out that I actually joined in 1980.
Okay.
But the thing was, at that time, you could just join a branch. You didn't have to join OGS.
Okay.
That started to change around about 19, I would say probably about 1987 or thereabouts. You had to join both. And for a while, some who refused to were sort of grandfathered, but then it was you join OGS and you join whatever branch you want at the same time. So that may have something to do with it. I don't know, but I guess
So
I've been there a long time.
So I was going to say, math is not my strong point, but you've been a member for over 40 years. So
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
you might be the point zero for talking about the 50-year anniversary of the organization.
I don't think so. I don't know. It's hard to say. Anyway,
So yeah, let's jump in. I mean, I can't think of a better person to chat with or better people than you and Fran for your longtime involvement here. But
mhm.
can you uh, tell us what Halton-Peel branch is and does?
Well, okay, Halton-Peel is one of the many branches there are now of the Ontario Genealogical Society, now known as Ontario Ancestors. And it was I wasn't there at the beginning. It was formed in 1974, so it had been going for about 10 years when I joined. The idea of the area was that it would cover both Halton County and Peel County, the old boundaries. I mean, internally they have changed a bit, as you
Yeah.
know. And I would say that, there's a comment on, I see if I made a note of it so I could read it to you. Um, there's a comment on our web page, our own web page, is about when you look at it as to what the branches, to the extent that they say, damn it, I've lost it now, that it's oh, there it is. Uh, we are a community of people who have a fascination of exploring our family trees, sharing what we've learned, helping others break down brick walls, and preserving records that could help you discover your family roots in Halton or Peel regions. So I think that's pretty well, probably covers the branches in general. I mean, in my case, I didn't really get actively involved until probably I made a note about that too, because you never remember these things. Um, I guess about 1995, and for that I have to thank the late Russell Cooper, who decided that I should be on the council. In those days, we called it the executive, and it was probably twice or three times the size of our executives now, which are now
Yeah.
called councils. And I started out as awards coordinator. We then had an award we do called the Harry Duff Award.
Right.
You might remember Harry Duff,
I
and
do.
it was actually founded by his widow Jan Spears Duff, and we awarded it for years. And we have a whole list of awardees, like it's probably on the website somewhere. And I myself got the award one year, but then it sort of went into abeyance. The we the money was gone or whatever, but we felt that we'd done our best with it. But as awards coordinator, after a while, I was given another job of program, coordinator. That was a lot of fun, actually. Planning programs. Who do we get for, that our meetings and so on. That went on for quite a while until, well, then Russell had been chair, and then Rowena, his wife, was going to take over as chair, and I was going to be vice chair. And then somehow or other that changed, and I suddenly found that I was chair for about 3 years. I'm thinking about what happened. Anne Logan became chair after me, late Anne Logan. Um, it's terrible when you start thinking about all these people you knew and they're not with us anymore.
Yes.
And so that was when I took on, uh, first of all, I took on places of worship, something we really don't have to do anymore because I hate saying this now, the late Trudy Mann did such a great job
She did.
with her books. And then I took on program as well. So I was doing two things, as it were. But it wasn't until about 2008 or thereabouts that I took on cemeteries after Ron Hibbert passed away.
Yeah.
Um, and that I'm have to admit, I really enjoyed that more than anything else.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do with the cemeteries? Because to me, I find that the most fascinating element. So,
Well, the whole idea is, of course, that first of all, I would say the goal is to record, publish, and preserve
yeah.
the cemeteries as much as we possibly can within our abilities. I think there are probably about 210 cemeteries that we know of in Halton-Peel.
Right.
And we probably published between 190 thereabouts of the ones that we've been able to record. Some of the big ones we haven't touched yet, as you can imagine. For example, Our Lady of Assumption, that one is huge.
Yeah.
I think it's about, I don't even know how many stones there are there now, but at one point there were 18,000, and that was a while back. So, yeah,
You need a small army of volunteers to do that.
yeah. Also, the way we're recording it has changed. We used to go out, in groups and pad and pencil or whatever, and we take sections of the cemetery, and we record what was on the stone, with the exception of verses, but all the important stuff.
Yeah.
And then somebody else would take your pad at the end and go around and check to make sure you had it all right. Of course, mistakes still happened. And then it was all given over to Ron at the time, and he and his wife would, they would laboriously type up the stuff, and then that was the beginnings of it.
Yeah.
And then we decided, oh, way back, I think probably the first one was St. Mary's in Brampton, to photograph the stones and then record it when we go home, like from the pictures,
Right.
and that's the way we did it after that for quite a while. But lately we haven't had any cemetery recording days, unfortunately. I had a lot of help from, well, let me see. First of all, what we've been doing is checking. There have been a lot of errors, and so we've been going over some of our recordings and bringing them up to date, adding new ones, correcting mistakes. And I have to do a shout out to Walter Eady, who was a great help to us in that. Walter was on our council. He was chair for a while, but he stepped away from it. Well, he really doesn't have any family in Halton-Peel, being a Scot, but he was very keen, and we really enjoyed his help.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it does speak to that whole, the network of like-minded, I guess, passionate individuals and volunteers who are, giving of their time and their interest to kind of record cemeteries for, future generations to understand what these things say and who's buried there. And for me as a researcher, it's invaluable. I've already had two cemetery transcripts open today, looking
Oh,
at.
really?
Oh yeah, yeah, no, I do it all the time,
Yeah.
all the time. I mean, you have the online tools like Find a Grave now, but I don't think they're quite nearly as complete or as accurate as the cemetery transcriptions that Halton-Peel has done over the years.
Well, it is done a bit differently, I think, but it can be helpful if there's a photo of the stone there.
Yes.
You know, the other aspect of cemeteries that I really enjoy is the queries we get. Now we get queries, through the website, and I recently, very recently, just got one from a person who wanted to know about the Graham cemeteries, and well, they're in so-called they're in Toronto Township, but they're actually in the city of Brampton.
Right.
You know how there's
Yep.
the change, and it's at Gulf Boulevard and Kennedy Road. There's a sort of valley there.
Yep.
They call it the Kennedy Valley. No, I wouldn't be able to help without the. I have to really say how much help I have got from some of the cemetery people, the managers, or in the various cities. Sharon Winsky, who is foreperson of cemeteries in Brampton, city of Brampton, is a wonder.
Let's focus back to the 50th anniversary of Halton-Peel and um I know we talked about programs. I know you have a speaker series with regular meetings. You do a work. I don't know, workshops. That's not the right word, is it? It's not workshops. It's you're part of the OGS conference every year, right? Like the
Yeah, that's changed a lot. Actually, can I just give you a little history about
yeah, yeah.
that? At one point, we were in regions. We were in Region 5, which I think included Toronto, Simcoe, and Toronto, and gosh, I can't recall who else. And we take it in turns to have what we call colloquium. And so we host those. We also hosted actually seminar 1984 at Arundel College. And again, when it was no conference in, I think, 2009,
That was the one at Sheridan College, right?
that was the one at Sheridan
Yeah, I
College.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. But regents seem to have disappeared. So we haven't really done anything of that nature recently, as you might say. And of course, you all know about COVID.
Yeah.
That was the end of, for quite a while, of meetings in person. So we went to Zoom. And I have to say, the one advantage of that was we were able to present speakers to people who are members of us, of people who have never been able to attend a meeting because they live so far away. So
Right.
that was one advantage. I know it's kind of like trying to get back together again. When we last year, when we went to Heritage Mississauga,
Yeah,
and
we
you
were there.
entertained us with your great stories. It was our first in-person meeting since 2020 or 2019, I'm not
Yep.
sure. So I know we're trying again this year. It's our 50th anniversary, and it's going to be at the Palermo Schoolhouse, the
Okay.
old
Yep.
schoolhouse. And that does present a problem because I'm wondering how the heck I'm going to manage with my walker, but we work something out.
Well, we've got a passionate team that'll assist the entry into the building. But so the in terms of the organization itself and who were you've already mentioned. I mean, you talk about standing on the shoulders of giants when it comes to
Mhm.
kind of local history and genealogy. You've already mentioned Russ and Rowena Cooper and Harry Duff. But who were some of the people who were instrumental in those early years of OGS?
Well,
Um,
I didn't know in 1974, I didn't know any of those people. I mean, I heard about Eric Blaney. He was one of the founders. But I think one of the people that really stood out for me and still does is Brian Gilchrist, the
right.
late Brian
Okay.
Gilchrist. He wasn't, we thought he doesn't appear to have been a founding member, but he certainly joined very early on. He really had a great interest in genealogy, and I'm sure you've heard his famous story about how he got involved.
I
Uh,
remember.
yeah, good. And he could tell, well, he was a great speaker.
Yes.
You learned a lot from Brian, no kidding, but he could keep you really interested right to the end. Sometimes this genealogy research is a dry subject, but he made it really a living one, actually. So I certainly do miss him. Um, I'm thinking about some of the people that will maybe be there. Well, Margaret Williams, for instance. We're going to have what we call like a sort of moderator. I'm going to be a moderator, and
Okay.
there's going to be a bunch of people on that day. I think we'll get if we can get Bernie Bradner and of course Jane and Kathy if they have
Yep.
this and so on. Our plans actually, I should maybe give you an idea.
Please. What
Uh,
is the meeting? First of all, when is the meeting?
the meeting is going to be on September the 22nd,
Okay.
God willing. Okay, and we're holding it, as I said, at Palermo Schoolhouse in Oakville,
Right.
Bronte Ready. And we have there are 6 steps to the entrance. It's something we're a little bit concerned about. Anyway, no, let me get my information here for you. Okay. I'm going to moderate the panel discussion, and we have confirmed panelists are Elaine Robinson. That was Elaine Bertrand Robinson, Margaret Williams, Dale and Anne Ward, which I'm looking forward to seeing, and Fran and Jane. So they will be there. Um, Apparently, we're going to be giving away a bit of swag.
Okay.
ordered, we've ordered bags, which with our logo and all that. I think so. It's a 9 by 12, which is the perfect size to hold a binder, made of white material with the branch logo on one side. Will cost approximately $10 per bag, and we'll give those out with any sort of.
There you go. For anyone attending the meeting on September 22nd, you're going to get some swag from Halton-Peel OGS.
We want to put up old photos and stuff like that, and I'm hoping you'll be there.
Well, fingers crossed. We're juggling schedules, but
Yeah.
we'll certainly be
Okay.
highlighting it and
Yeah.
inviting people to attend.
Yes, we're looking forward to it, and hope for good weather and nothing, no accidents on the highway or any of that stuff.
So
Um,
I well remember Brian and the work that he did and the passion he brought. But I also remember the when the meetings were functioning in person all the time, you split your meetings between Oakville Central Library and
Brampton,
Corners
probably.
Branch up in Brampton. Uh,
Yeah,
Kind of make sure you cover the geographic base of Halton and Peel, I guess, as the
that
design.
was the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. Um,
So
you always had great speakers. I remember you brought in people who did how to do land registry work. You brought in people on not only their own personal evolution of their family, but also just the way of reaching back into Irish records or Scottish records or God, American records. You did something on your Jamaican roots at one point, if I recall correctly.
that's right.
Yeah.
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 I mean, we've had to get okay. We're able to get some really good people during the Zoom period.
Right.
Thomas McEntee, for instance, because I mean he's in the States, right?
Right.
And but he's always a great catch and everything. And nowadays, I guess the people I think about, for instance, for records, are Glenn Wright, Military Records, and I think he's in Ottawa. So, well, but we have had him, and of course Jane McNamara and Janice Nickerson. Yeah,
No, and for a number of years, we did a couple of genealogy workshops here at the Grange in partnership with OGS as well, or Halton-Peel OGS as well. I remember we had Jane McNamara talking about it. You mentioned early on about breaking through the brick walls, and I think that was the sub theme of doing research of
oh,
finding your way through the
absolutely.
brick walls.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention the fact that we're sort of into the 21st century by having our own web page, our
Yep,
own Facebook page,
yep.
as well as our web page. But the Facebook page is very active, and we're also on the X, formerly known as Twitter. which I'm not on. So, but Kathy Baker is our sort of coordinator for that,
Yep.
and she's really good at it. So I gather we have a number of members.
We do.
So
And you know what we haven't mentioned actually is the newsletter. It's been
yeah, the
yeah.
newsletter's been going strong since 19. Well, interestingly enough, it didn't start till 2 years after the branch was formed in
Okay.
1976.
All
And
right.
it's a lot of fun going through the newsletters, watching how the format has changed and
Yep.
got more and more professional looking. I'd say Kathy's an excellent newsletter editor.
Yes.
And just for the heck of it, in this most recent newsletter, she told me that this is something that I had to print it out. It was, I have apparently, I started writing a newsletter article. I called it Cemetery Corner. What else would you call it, right? And apparently, I have been doing that for 15 years.
There we go.
List of all the titles that I've done. She like went to that much trouble. So I guess I look at it and figure, well,
It said it
maybe
sneaks up on you sometimes.
yeah, maybe if I'm short of an idea, I might be able to go back to let me see, 2010. Nobody will remember it. But
Um, one of the things I'm curious about, I know way back, not that, well, I guess it's not that long ago, but in 2010, we produced the Lost Villages book here at Heritage Mississauga.
that's right.
And OGS was, or Halton-Peel OGS was one of the key contributors to making that happen with funding assistance. What are some of the other projects that OGS has been involved with over the years? I'm trying to think. Are there books, publications? I know the cemetery transcripts are out there, but some of the other things, some of the high points of Halton Peel's activities over the years.
I think mainly when, of course, we try to give away money because we're not supposed to have a bunch of money, as a non-profit or whatever. Well, if I remember rightly, one of the things that I think Kathy wrote down that I remembered here is that we helped to have several newspapers in Oakville digitized,
Right.
and also in Mississauga. It was more recent. The bunch of old Mississauga papers like the the Mississauga Times,
Times, yeah.
and some of those older ones. We are. I think we wanted to do something for Brampton, but there ran into a problem with that one. So interestingly enough, apparently all of the Brampton the microfilms for that Brampton newspaper, I think it was the Guardian.
Yep.
They're up at Peel Archives.
Right.
But from what we were told, talking to Nick, there's some kind of a problem with ownership or something with regard to trying to get them digitized. I don't know why anybody would be, unreasonable about it. We have always wanted, for instance, to do the Streetsville Review,
Right.
and I don't think we could touch that one with a 10-foot pole. There are some people there who are probably against it, but anyway.
I would
Uh,
love to see that come to be, but
Sorry.
I would love to see that come to be.
Okay, I guess we can keep trying. Presently we have we're working on a proposal that we maybe here in Burlington with my church, St. Luke's, about some repair to part of the cemetery, which is of course 190 years old.
Right.
So
Well, you talk about something that's right up Halton Peel's alley is, not only recording of cemeteries, but, perpetual care of cemeteries too, right? So,
which is very, very expensive. So I don't know how well we don't have a lot to give, as it were.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for people that connect with Halton Peel branch of Ontario Ancestors, I know you have the meeting coming up on the 22nd to mark the 50th anniversary at the Palermo Schoolhouse. We'll share that information in the contacts
Mhm.
of the program. But what are some other ways that people can connect? You mentioned the Facebook and website. Anybody has inquiries, anybody's got questions, anybody's interested in joining, how do we direct them?
Oh, I guess we do depend on what we have out there, the website and Facebook. Um, uh, um, Jane Watt answers Horton queries, and she gets a number of them. And I'm not sure if and I think they probably email her. She's got her own special sort of ODS email address. And the same, and Fran usually handles the Peel ones. And if they're cemetery related, they're passed on to me.
Right.
As far as I know Jane gets a number of queries. And I don't think we get much mail anymore. We do have a mailing address, but it's like a post office box, but
Yeah.
people just don't write letters anymore.
No, it's all email now, of course. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, here's a organization in our community that is, 50 years old, has
Mhm.
provided in for myself alone invaluable assistance and guidance and a knowledge base, a reference base for in numerous research projects over time. I mean, I've known many of the people we've talked about, I've known over time and have been giants for me to stand on their shoulders, and yourself included, Dorothy. How many times did I pester you at the Canadiana room at the Central Library?
Uh, I
Uh,
don't know.
it was the darker days of your work days when I showed up, I guess. But it's
Not necessarily. Are you still pestering by any chance? Because I do recommend Dennis Reyes. I mean,
yeah,
he is good. I feel that we made a great. Well, I didn't personally have anything to do with it, but for once, a library executives, you say, gave the job to the right guy. My
they
only concern
did.
is
Dennis is an invaluable colleague and friend in the
absolutely,
heritage world, and
but as a
he
senior,
inherited big shoes, but he's doing an
he's doing
excellent job.
very well. Just
Yeah.
hope that he doesn't, you know, move somewhere else because I mean, I think he should stay right there.
I
You
think
know,
so too.
yeah,
So with that, we'll wrap up. We're going to be inviting Fran on, and we're going to explore some more stories of OGS here, of
great.
the OGS. But Dorothy, thank you for your time, and for all of you've done since those baby steps back in 1980 to 84 when you first opened that door to Halton-Peel, all the way through to being what you are now in the cemetery coordinator, and really appreciate all the work, all the passion, and all the guidance you've given over the years.
Gee, what can I say? Thank you so much, Matthew. And you know what? You've also been a great help to me as well. So let's put it this way: we've worked well together.
We have, and I treasure it, and I really do appreciate it. And like I said, the Halton Peel anniversary event coming up on the 22nd of September, marking 50 years of activity here in Halton and Peel. And like I said, I can't believe it, 210 different cemeteries in Halton and Peel. That's
Some of them are,
incredible.
some of them do present a problem. And it's not just size sometimes. And Saint Volodymyr, I believe, a lot of the stones are in Ukrainian or Cyrillic script, and I'm not sure how we would handle that. So,
Need some Ukrainian volunteers.
no, that's a thought.
There we go. Well,
Yeah.
thank you, Dorothy, and all the best with Halton Peel's 50th anniversary upcoming.
Thank you, Matthew.
Well, thank you, Fran, for joining us here on our Ask a Historian episode as we focus on the 50th anniversary of the Halton Peel branch of the Ontario Ancestors, or perhaps better remembered or better known as the Ontario Genealogical Society. And just thank you for joining us
Thank you for having me.
as we explore the stories of Halton Peel. So, how long have you been involved with Halton Peel?
Myself, it's been about 20 years.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But I started out I was just into genealogy, starting out with genealogy with my own family, who, by the way, are not in Ontario at all. But I don't know what I was looking for similar people who wouldn't look at me askance if I was talking about cemeteries and driving by cemeteries and wanting to stop and look and see. And I was looking for people of the same ilk. And I knew Dorothy Q from library school. We went to library school together in at Western.
Yeah.
And I asked her, and she just, well, I just happened to know of this genealogy group that I'm a member of. And off we went. And I went to the first meeting, and I found all these people that were talking about the same things I was interested in. And although their emphasis was on Ontario, they had a lot of different speakers talking about very general things as well as the local history of Ontario. So I was hooked.
So what I take
That
from
was 20 years ago.
so what I take from that is Dorothy's fault.
Yeah, I can. Well, further to Dorothy, uh, I had been a member for about 5 years, and I just went to the meetings every month. That they would have a meeting and a speaker who would talk about different things, and I would just go to the meeting and then go home and after a while go back at the next meeting. And Dorothy, I was in the Mississauga Library one day, and Dorothy worked at the Mississauga Library. And she just came up to me and she said, "Are you interested in being the librarian for the Halton-Peel meetings?" And I went, "Oh, okay." She grabbed me. And I said, "Oh, sure, why not?"
So how long have you been the librarian for Halton-Peel?
Uh, for 15 years.
15 years. Okay.
Yes. And then I joined the council
Right.
or the executive. They used to call it the executive.
Right.
And I changed the name to council. I don't know why. And I joined the council about the same time.
Okay.
And I've done various roles in the council, including, well, I've always been the librarian. I was the director, the chair for 3 or 4 years. And now for the past 2 years, I've been the programming director, which is an entirely different thing of trying to go and find different speakers that the members would be interested in. So it's taken on a whole new angle for me, and I've learned so much from participating and being involved with the Halton-Peel
Yeah.
OGS rather than just attending meetings once a month.
Right. Now, in that time that you've been involved, 20 years now, how has maybe it hasn't, but how has OGS, how's Halton-Peel OGS evolved over that time? What kind of changes have you seen? Maybe some high points of that last time period that you've been involved?
Yeah, well, obviously COVID,
Right.
COVID changed everything. But before COVID, we were very active. We would uh, take turns meeting at first the Oakville Public Library in person, and where we would have about 40, 50 people attending. And then we'd go to the Brampton Library, the Four Corners branch in Brampton, and we would alternate because Halton-Peel coverage is a lot of
Yep.
space. So we want to try to include 50% of Halton County and Peel County.
Right.
And we would hold seminars, and we were part of the conference of the whole entire OGS, and I think it was 2009
Yep.
at Sheridan College, and we were doing courses and beginning genealogy. And then all that stopped when COVID hit.
Yep.
And yeah. So it's a big change because following COVID, we still couldn't meet in person
Right.
because we had to go with the guidelines of Ontario Genealogy Society, and they didn't want to do that. So we hooked up with Zoom like everybody else and covered our meetings that way at Zoom in person. And I, we haven't really gone back to in person yet. We had a year ago, we had an in person meeting at Heritage
I
Mississauga.
remember. Yep.
Yeah, and you were our speaker, and you showed, well, you weren't exactly our speaker. We met in the backyard or
Front lawn,
so.
the front lawn.
The
Yep.
front lawn, yeah. A lot of people turned out because you missed the meetings. You
Yep.
missed meeting people in person.
Yep.
But that was the first time we'd met in 4 years.
Yep.
Then last May, just this last May, we met at the Brampton Library, the Four Corners branch, for the first time in 4 years. And we had about 20 people come out. And we had a good speaker. We had Nick
Nick from
Morrow
Hama.
from the region of Peel.
Yep.
And lots of people were interested in him. And then we had a meeting in June of Dorothy took us on a tour of her cemetery at St. Luke's Anglican
Yep.
in Burlington.
Right. And now in a couple near future, you've got the 50th anniversary event itself
Yes.
is September
Yes.
22nd at Palermo
Good
School.
segue. Thank you.
Yes.
September the 22nd, it's a Sunday. We decided to meet at a middle of the road place, Palermo Schoolhouse in
Yep.
Oakville. It's the address is 2431 Dundas Street West in Oakville.
Yep.
And we're planning on not having a speaker, but sort of a panel of people that have been in OGS for a long time.
Yep.
And just ask questions and talk about the reminiscences of 50 years. And some people are very, I shouldn't say this, are very old.
They've been around with
They've been around for a
Yeah.
while, yes. And some people are brand new, so they wouldn't. I hopefully they would like to hear about us
Yeah.
and
And
what we've
the idea,
accomplished.
I've always said, and I've been out a few times over the years as a speaker, it really is a group of friends, to be honest. So like it
Yeah,
really is a camaraderie and just an openness to those that come out, and I really respect that and enjoy that with the group. But that's a
yeah.
good segue to my next question was
Oh,
who
okay.
were who were some of the people that come to mind that were impactful with Halton-Peel OGS over the time that you've been involved?
Well, the first person who comes to mind is Brian Gilchrist, who was our beloved mentor. He was my mentor. He helped me a lot in trying to find people, and his presentations were always so good. He was such a good teacher. He would um, ask the audience questions, and we would actually have to think to answer. So yeah, Brian, and then he worked at Region Appeal for quite some time. So Brian first, and then Anne Anne Logan was
Right.
a good. She did the programming before I did. Then unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago, and I just took over the programming from her. But she was a big help for me and to decide where the speakers were.
Well, I always find it remarkable just that, over the years of an organization like this that has been around and active in the community, just how many hands are involved over
Oh
time.
yeah, yeah,
You just think of, some of those leaders that have stepped forward to volunteer their time and their passion with this organization. It's countless,
oh
right?
yes, yes. Yeah, it's become part of me. Like, oh, okay. Sunday we have a meeting and we're going to see people, but not in person, in by Zoom. And we tried that do the hybrid, but we don't have any technical people
Yeah,
in order to do it. So we have to stay with either the in-person or the Zoom. And the good thing about Zoom is we've attracted a lot more people.
right.
I always, depending on the speaker and the topic, we've had up to 200 people joining the Zoom meetings.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
So that's the upside of having Zoom,
Yeah.
but I just miss the camaraderie, as you
Yeah. Yeah.
say.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So
Uh,
there's two sides to it.
so you might be the best person to ask this just from your connection to the library, but and just that active involvement with Halton-Peel OGS. Um, what are some of the highlights that OGS has been involved with over the years? I'm thinking things like books and publications and conferences. You mentioned seminars, and can you think of some of the things over the past year? You mentioned the 2009 conference at Sheridan College. I remember that. I
Mhm.
remember Jane and Kathy at the little booth selling the.
Oh, Jane and Kathy are, oh, they're together all the time. They do so much work just behind the scenes and nobody realizes. They're very quiet about it. And yeah. Um, Kathy does the newsletter.
Yep.
Um, Jane is involved in helping people do their research. Um, and over the years we've done a lot of digitization with newspapers, the Mississauga newspapers, the Port Credit Weekly. We helped the Mississauga Library digitized, and we've done the same at Halton Hills Library.
Okay. Talk about invaluable resources as
Yes,
well. But
yes.
what kind of publications has OGS been involved with over the years?
Um, well, right now, Kathy is publishing for our 50th the Trafalgar Township history of the Trafalgar Township churches.
Yep. Yep.
And a lot has gone on with that, a lot of picture taking, and I've been doing some picture taking. And because Trafalgar Township is a big township, it encompasses Oakville and Milton
Yep.
and the areas around Milton. So Kathy's been doing that. Um, we have some family histories
Right.
of just related to Halton and Peel. People have donated their family histories. If the criteria is that their families were either from Halton or Peel,
Right.
and it's never been published before, and it has to be in a binder kind of form. You can't just hand me a whole 100 sheets of paper and say, here you go. So there is some sort of criteria, but we do have about 50 family histories that you probably couldn't find anywhere else.
Right.
So, including some of the founders of Brampton, a lot of histories from Brampton.
Yeah. And I was going to say the library collection itself is housed at Four Corners branch, right?
Yes, it's at Four Corners. It doesn't circulate,
Right.
but it's a reference area. We have about 400 books and manuscripts, cemetery transcriptions um, for Halton and Peel. Uh, but it's mainly local history collection, a lot of local history from Mississauga, Brampton, not so much from Halton, but a lot from Peel.
Yeah. Well, to me it's such an invaluable resource in our community,
Yeah,
and I constantly use the cemetery transcripts. So a hat tip to Dorothy and all the ones who came before her who
yes,
looked after the cemeteries. They are invaluable resources for present and future generations.
yes,
They're and so kudos. I know transition is probably the overused word, but COVID, presented some challenges, but also
yes,
offered some new avenues. But Halton-Peel OGS has remained one of those steadfast things in our community. The
yes,
active people are still there. So here we are, 50th anniversary, founded in 74. 50th anniversary on September 22nd. When you think back on, 50 years, I know you've been involved for 20 years, but the organization from a 50-year perspective, um, part of the challenge or part of the opportunity is, keeping that going, right? Attracting new people.
Right. Yes.
So part of that is come out and meet people and see what it's like and bring your interest. But how do people connect with Halton-Peel branch?
Well, we have a website. You can go to our website and uh, I, what is the website? haltonpeel.ogs.on.ca. And you come to any of our meetings, everyone is welcome. You don't have to be a member to attend our meetings, whether they be on Zoom or in person. In person in September, and our meetings on October and November will go back to Zoom.
And then you said you also have that avenue to ask questions as well. They can email
Yes,
Jane about
on our website, there's a place where you can ask any research questions pertaining to either Peel or Halton. Jane answers the questions from Halton, and I answer the questions from Peel. Yet I live in
I was going to
Milton,
say you
and
live
Jane
in.
lives in Mississauga. I don't know how that happened.
I was gonna say the strings crossed there somewhere. But and you also have I think that like you said Dorothy hosted a cemetery tour back in the summer.
Yes,
So you do different things, right? The group does different
yes,
things. Yeah.
yes.
Um, and like we said, yeah, we can't plug it enough, and we'll certainly promote it. But an in-person 50th anniversary meeting at the Palermo Schoolhouse on Sunday, September 22nd. What time is the meeting?
From 2 o'clock to 4,
2 to 4.
and we'll have this discussion and a few surprises, maybe some giveaways, and of course we're gonna have cake
Oh,
and lots of refreshments, and maybe a few other surprises.
well, cake's always a draw, so come out for free cake.
So
Uh,
you can go to the military reenactment, which is your
yep,
weekend,
yep.
and then go to the meeting.
Absolutely. We'll,
Long done
we'll
this.
promote them both.
Yeah.
So with that, I just, on behalf of Heritage Mississauga to the members and fans, shall we say, of Halton-Peel Branch
Yes.
OGS, happy 50th anniversary.
Thank you.
And like we said, keep on turning over the stones of our past and sharing the stories of our the people who walked on this land before us. And
That's right.
Halton-Peel has done and continues to do an amazing job recording and collecting stories of the people who came before. And just, on behalf again, thank you for joining us, Fran, and
Well,
exploring
thank you,
this
Matthew.
50th anniversary.
It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for spending some time with us here on Ask a Historian. And thank you also to both Dorothy Q and Fran Murphy for sharing their memories and stories from Halton-Peel Branch with us to mark the 50th anniversary. Like, subscribe, and follow us, and we will see you on future episodes of Ask a Historian with Heritage Mississauga. And please make sure you come out to the 50th anniversary meeting of the Halton-Peel Branch of Ontario Ancestors on Sunday, September 22nd from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Palermo Schoolhouse.